and you are more than welcome back to Little Miss Drop Stitch. Today I've got a stash busting project for you. It's these really cute little fabric pumpkins that I'm going to be showing you how to make. And if you've been following us on all the obligatory, if I can say it, socials, you'll notice that I've been popping them around the UK for you to find. Well, first thing is always first at Little Miss Drop Stitch. So you will need a piece of fabric that is 7 by 5 inches, 7 being the width and 5 being the height. And this converts to roughly 18 centimetres by 13. And for your information, you can get 9 pumpkins out of one fat quarter. But of course, you're welcome to use your scraps as well. Over to the sewing machine now, but you absolutely can do this project by hand. I'm using a nice long stitch length, so I've gone to the maximum dial, which is number 4, and you're going to sew along the longest edge. So this was a 7-inch side or 18 centimetres. Press a foot down, do not back tack because we will be gathering this in just a moment. And you also want to be away from the start and end because we will be sewing over that later, and that means you won't be able to gather. So do start at least 1.5 centimetres away from your start and finish. Okay, take it off the sewing machine and leave a bit of thread because we'll need those threads for gathering. Don't kind of tie those threads off. And then you're going to flip your fabric round and do the same again on the opposite side. So this is the other side that is 7-inch or 18 centimetres. With right sides of the fabric together, so your gathering stitches will become the top and the bottom, and we're going to be sewing along that short edge, which was the 5-inch or 13 centimetre edge. Do turn your sewing dial back to a shorter stitch length, so anything from 2.5 to 3, and you're going to sew the length, and this is where you can go from the start to the finish with back tacks. Also to mention, I did a 1 centimetre seam allowance here. Next, pull on the threads on one of the ends to gather the stitches. We can leave the other end for now. And sew over all of these gathers. It might be a bit clunky going through your machine if there's lots of thickness, so feel free to switch to a thicker needle or use those little gathering threads just to help it along. Let's have a look at what we've done so far. So turn it so the right side of the fabric is now on the outside, and there we go. That's what we've just done. We've made a nice gathered bottom and secured it as well. Any bits of threads dangling either in or outside your pumpkin, just give them a snip. Everything will be nice and secure. Now we are going to stuff, and if I have one weakness, it is overstuffing. So my sample looked beautiful, and then I made about 27 of these, and then I compared them again to my sample, and they were more like my rows and twice the size. So my advice would be to, go easy on the stuffing. Unless you want a big pumpkin, of course. If you're anything like me, I'm not a fan of sewing projects where your needle's going through a lot of thicknesses, your hands getting sweaty, and yeah, not a fun time. I wanted this project to be fun for all levels of experience. So with the other threads from the top, gather the top of the pumpkin, and then all you need to do is knot the threads to secure. So pull and gather nice and tight and then knot and trim near the knot, and this will be covered later by the stalk, so don't worry about it being visible. This is the shape you'll be left with, and I'm now going to show you how to make it a bit more squishy and a bit more pumpkin-like. The way to add squish to your pumpkin is to take quite a long piece of strong thread. So think about using the embroidery thread you're using perhaps doubled, or I'm actually using that kind of plied crochet cotton that's really strong. So you're going to thread your needle, if you can, quite a long sharp needle. So go through one end and then get the yarn from the thread from the other end, go back through the bottom of your pumpkin and through the top right near where you've just come. So essentially we're putting both threads through, That's difficult to say. We're putting both threads through, but we need them to anchor and to stay in place. That's why we thread one thread at a time rather than thread both threads through. Then you need to pull on those threads as tight as you can without snapping your thread. Keep hold of the pumpkin. So give it a good tug, said the actress to the bishop, on those threads. And I've done a double knot, so that just keeps that squish in place for us. Now we're going to make the segments. Yes, this does seem fiddly on your first go, but I promise you after 27 like I did, it is super easy. And the way I've done it without sewing means that you don't have to kind of hurt your fingers using a needle through lots of layers of fabric. So there's no really way to explain it. If you follow what I'm doing in the video, in summary, you're taking each of those two threads, so we've not cut it off from when we knotted before, and you're wrapping them round the pumpkin until you've got 6 segments. So there we've made 4, and you're going to, a bit like wrapping ribbon on a present actually, with the way that you cross over both of the strings. To secure, pumpkin in one hand, threads in the other, give it a tug and knot as close as you can to that pumpkin because we want that squish in place as well as the segments being quite defined. I did actually go in and knot it closer to the pumpkin. So once you've got that, you can tie it off and cut near the knot. We'll be covering that with the stalk in a moment. You're going to need a tiny little piece of fabric for the stalk, so 3¼ inches or 8 centimetres the width and 3/4 of an inch or 2 centimetres for the height, so absolutely tiny. What I also did, if you're making quite a few, you can just roll a big length and cut them along. There were a couple of strips of leftovers from that fat quarter when cutting 9 out, so you will actually have room from your original, or you can mix and match if you're making quite a few pumpkins. So nothing fancy, just roll that strip nice and tight. Then to secure, I decided to use a glue gun. Just make sure you're using it very sparingly so it doesn't squish out and burn your fingers as well. You could use PVA, but you'd need to wait for it to dry, or just use your sewing thread as well. So I've glued that into place, but absolutely you can sew it. And then all you need to do is a blob of glue to put it on your pumpkin. Again, this could be sewn if you did want to. Hurrah! And there we have it, a finished little cute fabric pumpkin. I've also done this as a photo tutorial on the website, and it's also as a short on TikTok and YouTube and all that. Please do consider supporting us, giving us a follow, subscribe, watching our videos, like, thumbs up, all that good stuff, because I'm absolutely worn out after all the pumpkin-y autumnal things that I've been making, but I've had such good fun, so thank you for joining me. Well, have a lovely day and take care.